how you found out about airSlate actually.
I found out about airSlate basically through advertising, and after researching it a little bit more and trying to find solutions for my personal use, it was kind of exactly what I needed to see and what I needed to hear for what my business was. Automating processes and creating workflows is something I've always thought of, but hadn't seen it in a software form. And I know there's other softwares out there, but this is the one that I ran into. So it was just kind of like a perfect timing for me. And after going through a few of the courses and reading through what the service offers, I could tell that there's going to be a ton of value for, what I would be using this for and what others would see the potential in it as well.
What is your business? And when did you start it?
Yeah, so I'm a notary. At the moment, I'm a notary signing agent. And I started business about a year ago. So we're still, just about in our first year, but moving towards online services. So what I found the most value in and what I was, kind of racking my brain on was how would I keep document in a secure location? How could I edit documents? How could I save them? How can I send them out for filing? And then how can I conduct signings virtually? So virtual signings isn't a new thing, but for me, it's new. And I didn't have a software available that I didn't know of. And it kind of stopped me from moving forward as far as making sure that I'm taking the correct precautions and protecting data and documents.
And so you started your business during COVID. It wasn't like you started before and then had to change when COVID started. This is all during COVID, right?
Oh yeah, I started business right during COVID, like in the midst of it, in the meat of it. And that was a big problem for me, was to figure out, wow, what do I do when I can't meet somebody face to face? I need to find ways to, first off, secure documents. Second off, edit these documents, and then be able to video conference, send documentation in a secure way.
And were there others that you considered, or did you just see this ad for airSlate and just?
There were a few others that I considered, and there were some loose other solutions as well. But what I found the most helpful with airSlate is that it has integration with other apps that I would typically be using. For example, pdfFiller and signNow.
Yep.
So those are like the main two components that I needed.
Right.
And that ended up being like, you know what? I don't need to go anywhere. It sometimes can be difficult to use 3, 4, and 5 different apps in a workflow. Inaccuracies sometimes pile up, and missed deadlines begin to pile up as well. So using this software, I found that it would be able to eliminate those errors and inaccuracies. So having that being said, it allows me just to keep everything in one place and create a flow, documents, workflows, all in one place, secured and on the cloud.
How many courses have you taken?
I would say close to 20.
Oh, cool.
But in the beginning stages. So just a brief overview, the business process mapping, which I found a lot of key knowledge in it as far as building a plan to go ahead and lay out a foundation to start creating that workflow in order to create and generate business.
Are you taking any more like industry specific courses? You said you started with, the basic sort of 101 ones. What are you working on now?
What I wanted to work on now was to get more familiar with the pdfFiller side of things, mainly to learn the ins and outs of, saving documentation, editing these documents, and then being able to send them. And I've gone through it a few times just as practice, but then going ahead and integrating that into a flow and then into a website is what I'm looking for in the future here. So really find out a way to get that into either a landing page or into an actual website.
What would you say is the biggest benefit you've gotten from the Academy so far? Is there anything that you learned and you can immediately start acting on that, start putting those skills to work?
The biggest skill that I've learned so far and that I'm working on currently is how to integrate, notary services. Basically, how am I going to get somebody from another platform who doesn't necessarily integrate with a workflow software, how I'm going to get their information from that website to my workflow, and then going ahead and keep all the information in one place.
What would you, do you know other notaries, and are people, what would you tell people who might be hesitant to digitize and use something like signNow or airSlate?
I would tell people to just recognize that the mapping of a business process is fairly easy when you can see it on a computer screen and you can see it in front of you, and then you can go ahead and tinker with if this then that scenarios. And then it allows you to kind of visualize your responsibilities. Like I said, you mentioned before, you can see visually what is going on, what your team will be using, what they're doing at the current moment, and you can actually audit, their workflow. I would also say that I really think this is a great software to use because you can regulate your processes. You can set things in place, set the process in place, and then you meaning the administrator sets whether or not things can be changed or not. And then it's really great in, onboarding people and adding people to your team, and the document that goes along with that as well.
Yep. Do you think have the courses been easy to understand? Do you have any suggestions for them? Do you have any, were they sort of framed in the right way that's conducive to learning and taking action?
Yeah, I would say, along with learning anything in general, I think it just depends on the individual. Some people can read something and then kind of apply that knowledge instantly. And then others, I believe that if to let it sit in, step away for a second, go back to it, and then go ahead and try and implement the best way you can. I think it's important that you have these sales calls or customer support channels to go ahead and then be able to ask these sort of questions and gain clarity. Do
you have any coding experience, or are you just a no coder with, going in?
Yes, so originally I chose airSlate because it was a no code solution. So for me, as being a beginner in this process, it was speaking to me and where I was at in my process and business learning and no code software and coding software. I'm sure at some point in the future I will be coding, but for now it was to learn the first step in the process, which I think is important in stepping into these sort of this sort of software, because it seemed overwhelming, but as going through the courses and, like I said, visualizing processes and the video templates, and that helped a lot just to kind of see it work in action. And then, take a second back and then you step back into it and apply that to what you're doing as the business owner.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, no code, we really bet, we're betting everything on no code because we think that, think about the potential audience. That's like 99% of the people out there have no coding skills or knowledge at all. And we think that we're sort of, democratizing the entire field. You don't need any formal coding education to use a tool like airSlate. So we think that that's, a good bet to make.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What advice would you give for somebody, like yourself a year ago, or, a few years ago, starting out, their own digital business, pandemic or no pandemic? What advice would you give for somebody about digitizing?
Take these calls with sales reps, and give them opportunity to provide you with information about these services. Listen in and see how it can benefit your business. I wouldn't go into it with a skepticism that, it's just a sale, when in reality, softwares like this is really going to help alleviate the inconsistencies in your workflow that you can see as a small business owner, and also kind of clear your plate of minuscule tasks that will require you to sort of spend more time than needed. When if you can use something like airSlate, you can go ahead and automate certain business processes. You can see your business flow and you can critique it, change it, fix it to what works best for you.
What are some of those minuscule tasks? Depending on industry, those can range from a bunch of different things. What are some things that you would have already replaced with automation or hope to replace with automation?
I would say just enhancing my efficiency in the follow-up process, the initial email, information gathering, surveys. And that's at this point in my business, that's the most important, is gathering information. What's the most needed for my particular service that I'm trying to provide to my customer at that moment. Now, it could be 2 questions, or it could be, more than 2 questions, 5 to 10 questions, but whatever the questions are, there needs to be automations set in place that allow you, the business owner, small, medium, or enterprise, to be able to take in the information without having to delegate so many tasks out. And it gives most of the power back to the user, I believe.
I would agree. It's good that you mentioned, small, medium enterprise, because if you have a couple dozen customers, maybe you can handle that stuff on your own. As you start to grow, you can't keep, doing every process manually. That's where, automation really, becomes important. Where do you see your business in 2 years or 5 years?
Yeah, it took a couple of years, man. I really see that my business is fully online. It's a service that is completely online. It's allowing me to just reach the customers that I'm dealing with, new and old, allowing me to keep that relationship going, whether it's an email, a text message, or a video conference call. I love that I'll be able to have all of that in one place on one software, with the ability to, at any point, go ahead and notify my customers and clients about what's new with my business, what's going on, how we're growing. And as a small business owner, and for those who are watching, things might seem overwhelming in the beginning, but taking this step, reaching out and doing your research on different softwares out there, in this one in particular, airSlate, you can find how this software will be able to help in some way, your automation process in your business.
That's great advice. What is your favorite across, airSlate, pdfFiller, signNow? What would you say is your favorite or maybe most used feature or function from the software? And, what would be like one use case that you use that for?
As well as being a notary, I'm a personal trainer. So creating surveying forms to send out to potential clients. So then when this client would fill out this form, I'd be notified. And then through that notification, I can then follow up with this client as to what their answers were. So I think it saves the client some time, and then it also will save you, the business owner, time, so you can be more directive in how to deal with that information that you just received. And using the airSlate workflow, you wouldn't even have to yourself, potentially actually send an email out or a text message. It would be done for you, because based on the information that the recipient submitted, the if and then comes into play.
Right. It knows where to send data,
Yeah,
and where to send it to.
And you can seriously automate, every process of your online business, especially if you're selling digital courses, you're selling ebooks, if you even want to sell product online of any sort. This is a great tool for that.
Yeah. So I didn't know that you're also a personal trainer.
Yeah.
So you're using airSlate for your notary side, and then also for your personal training side?
Yes, I'm going to integrate that into my personal training, in the process of developing some courses that I would love to offer for my clients. And that was another important factor in me choosing airSlate, is because that I can use it for a professional financial background or that type of clientele. And then also to people who, we're just here to work out, and they want certain information. They necessarily don't have all the time to read and click through many links. So I think it's important to make it as easy as possible for both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, your own use cases, and make it easy and frictionless for the people using it on the front end of everything.
Yeah, so the client on the other end who's filling out a form, I'm big on surveying in my process right now, surveying and finding out information. From what I have found in the past is that a lot of people find it difficult to want to submit certain forms or send out certain information as far as giving phone numbers, names, and email addresses, there's no value behind it. And the person who is sending out this information can be hard for that individual to buy into what you are wanting them to understand and the service that you want to provide them.
And now that I know that you use signNow for multiple things, are there other use cases besides just those survey forms that you use airSlate, pdfFiller, signNow for your personal training side?
Yeah, so contracting, going to go ahead and get somebody under contract to hire me as their personal trainer, or even an escrow company to hire me as a notary, part of their team. You're going to need to sign these documents virtually. And it's not always the best interest to show up in person. So using tools like that, eSignature and data collection and contract management and workflow automation, through these, that just helps the process out for everyone.
In one word, describe how eSignature automation is helping you thrive in your business.
Say it's proactive, very proactive on my end. I can be as proactive as possible. It gives a sense of relief that I'm in control of where my documents are when they're sent out.
Yeah.
And I know based on, when somebody opens a document, when they sign it and when it's completed, that I know it's done. So It allows me to be proactive. And if there's a space and time where I realize it's been a couple hours, people forget things come up. airSlate provides that ability to go ahead and keep track of where documents are and what stage they are in the process of being signed.
It's a great answer, man.
It's true. It's real, man. That's the real honesty. And it's really efficiency. I think we all want to try and be as efficient as we can in our workflows.
Yep.
It's not cutting corners or taking the shorter end of any workflow or any business process, but it's really just to create some efficiency, some sort of, I know that this was completed at this time. I know that this individual opened this document at this time. Now, my end of the deal is done. Now let's make sure that, we keep the process going, and people meaning your team or, an agent that you work with, that, the times are being met, deadlines are being met, and mainly streamlining the collaboration process as well.